Algorithms critics say are addictive by signing a bill that lets parents limit the unsolicited posts sent to children under age 18, also blocking notifications overnight without parental consent.
Hochul also signed a law prohibiting social media sites from collecting, using, sharing, or selling personal data of minors.
They use all this to hold them captive to a barrage of unsolicited images and messages, and that must be stopped right now.
Earlier this week, the U.S. Surgeon General called for a warning label to be put on social media platforms he says are fueling a teen mental health emergency.
Fox's Brian Yanes. One tech industry trade group calls the legislation an unconstitutional assault on free speech. Two men now face capital murder charges in the death of a 12-year-old girl whose body was found Monday in Houston.
Because of the assistance of the area community and surveillance video that our officers have tirelessly tracked down and other evidentiary pieces, we have found and learned that the suspects began their evening at a Northborough area restaurant together.
Houston Police Lieutenant Stephen Hope says after leaving the restaurant on foot, the men are seen talking to the girl before all three go to a convenience store, then walk to a bridge near where her body was found in a creek. Fox 26 in Houston has reported it's believed all three were living in the same apartment complex where the two suspects were taken into custody this morning. Toyota just announcing it is suspending production and delivery of the Grand Highlander and Lexus TX Sport utility vehicles to address an airbag issue that already prompted a recall. A mixed finish on Wall Street. The Dow up 300 points, but the S&P and the NASDAQ in the red. America is listening to Fox News.
When life spells heartburn, how do you spell relief? ROLAIDS.
What about when life spells fried chicken?
ROLAIDS.
Fourth cup of coffee?
Still ROLAIDS.
Extra cheesy pizza?
Rolaids always spells relief. Rolaids' powerful dual-active formula begins neutralizing acid on contact to fight your heartburn fast. So, when life spells heartburn, Rolaids spells relief. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
I'm Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I learned about atrial fibrillation the hard way. My symptoms would come and go. Shortness of breath, fatigue. I kept going. Then I got so lightheaded, I couldn't. My doctor said I have AFib, so I'm about 5 times more likely to have a stroke. Other symptoms, irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain can come and go, but the risk of stroke stays. If you have symptoms, tell a doctor. Visit notimetowait.com.
Sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
The U.S. Supreme Court sides with a Texas woman who claims a politically motivated arrest.
Supreme Court justices ruling Sylvia Gonzalez, a former Texas City Councilwoman, can pursue a lawsuit alleging officials abused their power by arresting her in retaliation for exercising her First Amendment rights. Soon after taking office as a council member in Castle Hills in 2019, Gonzalez, who had campaigned as a critic of the city manager, was arrested, charged with stealing a government document. The then 72-year-old saying the document, a citizen petition, just got mixed up with other papers. Charges were dropped, but she stepped down. Justice Clarence Thomas dissented, but in the 8-1 unsigned opinion, justices found an appeals court was wrong in how it decided whether she could bring her claim, sending it back to a lower court.
Fox's Christine Goodwin. We're still awaiting a Supreme Court decision on former President Trump's immunity claim that has a federal election interference case on hold. Hundreds of strangers turn out in Maine for the funeral of an apparently forgotten veteran.
86-year-old Jerry Brooks died in a nursing home in Augusta, Maine a month ago. Widowed, none of his remaining relatives claimed his body. The funeral home learned that Brooks had served in the Marine Corps. They posted a notice asking if anyone would act as pallbearers. Within minutes, they were turning away volunteers. The VFW arranged for a burial with full military honors at Maine's Veterans Memorial Cemetery. The Patriot Guard motorcycle riders escorted the hearse on the 40-mile drive to the cemetery Thursday, where hundreds of people showed up in the sweltering heat to pay their respects to Jerry Brooks, a man they'd never met. Jack Callahan, Fox News.
Recapping stocks, a good day for the Dow, finishing up about 300 points, but the NASDAQ snaps a streak of 7 record closes, dropping 140 points. The S&P hitting a new high earlier today, topping 5,500 for the first time, but then finishing down about 13 points. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News.
In an ever-changing real estate market, it is so important to work with experienced agents like Russ and Nick Taylor with the Taylor teams at Taylor Realty Associates. They have the knowledge and expertise to get your home sold for the most amount of money in the shortest amount of time. Trust the experience and success of Russ and Nick Taylor with the Taylor team at Taylor Realty Associates. Give them a call today at 217-355-0700 or visit them online at taylorboys.com. That's taylorboys.com.
Hey, what's up? It's The Drive with Sam Piper, ESPN Radio 93.5. Derek Piper, Kyle Tosk, Jimmy Sebeski. No Lon Tay today. He's up in Chicago for some baseball. Andrew Tay on the hill at some point today. He may currently be pitching as we speak, but understand and appreciate Lon being gone for that. The flamethrower, Andrew Tay, touching 90 miles an hour on the radar gun. If
That's
only.
Awesome.
Don't we all remember when we threw 90 miles an hour?
I wish my 62 mile an hour fastball back when I was like 12.
Right.
Could have gotten a 90 at some point, unfortunately.
What if we go by kilometers? There we got it. KPH, I'm definitely shoving it.
Whatever conversion you need to make us feel better, we'll handle that on this side. We'll let Andrew do his thing up there in Chicago. A lot to talk about today. Josh Whitman met with the media at his annual media roundtable. I was there for the 2.5 hours that it went on. You had about 2 hours in the room, which you didn't have cameras on. You were able to record, but not able to live tweet or anything. And a lot that Josh touched on, and obviously he's very brilliant, very thorough, and very much appreciate him taking the time today to tackle a number of topics. And this is as big of a time as any as you look upon the new horizon in college athletics. There's been so much change in recent years where you've introduced NIL and you've introduced sports gambling and a number of different things that have come on along the way, COVID and the COVID year and all those different things. But now to have the ruling in court where athletic departments are going to be able to and tasked with revenue sharing with their student athletes and what that's going to look like. And some of this is still in motion and we're finding out more details. But Josh explained today how Illinois, starting in 2025, based on what is in place right now, will be able to share up to $22 million with student athletes. How will that get divvied up? Some of that is still unclear, and that's not in concrete right now in terms of the guidelines, but we can talk about what all of that looks like, at least based on what Josh is hearing and seeing as far as that goes. NIL, how is that going to exist in this world post this ruling? I think that's an interesting conversation. I have skepticism in terms of trying to reel some of that back in, because I know that's some of the hope here for some coaches, some athletic departments, as we know, especially widely reported in basketball this offseason, that the inflation on the NIL side went kind of crazy, and we'll see ultimately how that looks. And I do think there are going to be some parallels here, or just some crossing of lines where some of those boosters, some of those involved parties who are giving big numbers of NIL, maybe now donating to the program so that they can, through the revenue sharing, take some of that and contribute to the $22 million. So I want to talk about that as we go along. Some news specifically to basketball, some big ones. I know we're going to start here. There's an addition to the schedule, which I know some of you probably have seen. It's been reported on Twitter, and we'll get to that here shortly. Block out maybe some holiday viewing, which you already do anyway for another sport, but now you're going to have some Illini basketball to watch. But let's start with what I view as the story of the day. Terrence Shannon Jr., we've talked about this here recently, of course, last week, acquitted on charges of rape and also sexual battery. I wrote a story, as we talked about earlier this week, I wrote a story over the weekend making the case for Terrence Shannon, which admittedly it was a fairly easy case to make of why he should be in the rafters at some point, and my argument was as soon as possible, really, to get this thing in motion and say his season on paper, the impact of winning, the stats, all looked the part of a consensus All-American. It was just that he was not getting the votes because of the charges that were still hanging over his head. Well, Josh Whitman agrees with that, and he told us today during the media session that he informed Terrence last night that he will be going up in the rafters. They will find a time, something that works for Terrence's NBA schedule, because he will be drafted in the NBA draft next week, for him to come back and have that ceremony, have that jersey lifting up into the rafters above Lou Henson Court for fans to celebrate and whatnot. So the actual date, of course, understandably so, will be in the works, but that is going to happen. There are no changes to the guidelines regarding the criteria. It's just an exception that Illinois is making, Josh Whitman making that call and saying, and we'll play his sound bites later in the show. There's a long block of media availability for TV and broadcast that we were able to get some bites from Josh Whitman. But behind closed doors, he did say that, look, he's one of the great players that we've ever had in our program. He said that he's definitely and clearly a top 10 player in college basketball, which you need to be a first or second team consensus All-American, clearly within that top 10 range. And he said, in his opinion, he was probably top 2 or top 3 among the players in college basketball last season. So should have met the threshold, should have met the criteria. Illinois doing the right thing, and I think especially getting out in front of it, leaving no doubt, alerting Terrence of this now to where he can be recognized, and this doesn't just kind of float off into the wind as, will there, won't they? They're waffling on it, potentially. And I wrote the column before I kicked this around to Kyle and Jimmy. I wrote the column not to criticize Illinois for not having done it already. I was just writing it as an opinion and something that should be done. And to Josh's credit, the wonder didn't last very long. They acted swiftly. It speaks to Terrence's resume that he put together, but also speaks to Josh for doing the right thing. And I'm happy to hear this today that Terrence will be going in the rafters.
No question. Extremely well deserved. And I'm glad too that it was so quick with it's been a week since the verdict came down in the trial, and we already have an answer. Like you said, it's not something that's going to linger even on into next season with, clouding over next season's team or anything like that. Terrence Shannon's going to have his day. It's probably going to be next season. And when you look back at the season he had, I don't think it's crazy at all to say it's the best season any single player's had at Illinois. Is that crazy to say?
It's the best one that I can remember.
Individually, obviously, he didn't go to a Final Four. He didn't finish runner-up like the 2005 guys. There's been better teams, but individually paired with, it's not like like you said the other day, it's not like he missed the tournament but put up 22 a game either.
Yeah, right.
He led you to an Elite Eight. He led you to a Big Ten tournament championship. He led you to a second-place finish in the Big Ten. And just the run he went on in the postseason, those 6 straight games that included the 3 games in the Big Ten tournament and the 3 games in the NCAA tournament, 31.2 points a game, 6-0, an Elite Eight berth, a Big Ten tournament championship, all while being tried for a very serious crime that he was innocent of and knew he was innocent of. And with all that came with that, with all the fact that the NCAA tournament, when they got to Boston for that regional to face Iowa State, the top story wasn't about Terrence Shannon, the player, and how incredible he's been on the floor. It was, well, this cloud's hanging over his head. and he goes out and he puts up, 30 points in that game to beat Iowa State or something close at 26 or something. Just an unbelievable season, and I'm so glad that he's going to get that recognition because he's probably the single best individual player that I've seen play at Illinois. That last season, the last season version of Terrence Shannon Jr., I haven't seen anyone better at Illinois. Now I'm 20 years old. You've got me beat a little bit, Lon. Would argue some other guys. I'm not saying he's the best of all time.
Sure.
I think last season was as good of a peak. That stretch in the postseason was as good of a run as an Illinois player has had.
Yep.
And so there's no question that deserves to live on at the State Farm Center forever. And the other thing about this, too, is you're technically making an exception for Terrence Shannon, but it's not like this is a precedent where now you got to make exceptions for – this is a guy that would have been a consensus All-American. You don't necessarily have to change the entire framework of who deserves to be in the Raptors or your criteria based on this because there's an understanding from everybody that he would have met the criteria. And so I think that's another part of it, too. You're not opening the door to say, okay, now we're going to have 70 jerseys in the Raptors now because we made this exception. It's still a very exclusive club, but Terrence Shannon deserves to be a part of it.
It needs to be exclusive. I made sure to hit on that. I think that the best way to go about it always was make the exception. Now, if you would have opened it up to two-time first-team All-Big Ten guys and you would have added 6 new names, including Terrence's up there, I know Kwan Garris is one that would be very eagerly welcomed and accepted by Illini fans because a lot of people felt like he should be up there, the second all-time leading scorer in program history. But, yeah, for Terrence, the volume of production that he had in terms of the points, the efficiency at which he had it, like it wasn't somebody that took 20 shots a game and only shot 33%, but he was the best player on a bad team. He had the winning, you had the sheer volume, you had the fact that he shot 48% from the field and 36% from three as the guy that everybody was keying in on and trying to stop, and you just couldn't. 4 rebounds a game, 2 assists per game, impactful defense, at times lockdown defense. The highest scoring average for an Illini since Nick Weatherspoon back in 72-73, who averaged 25 points per game. So in terms of the numbers, coupled with the team success, coupled with the efficiency, I'm not familiar with a better season in Illinois history. Now, is he the best player at Illinois ever? I think it was the best single year that I've ever seen. Now, I always add in the context of he was 23 years old. What would Io have looked like at 23? What would Darren Williams have looked like at 23 at Illinois? So there's different ways to make arguments for the best individual player that's ever put on the uniform. But the version that Illinois got this past year was sensational, dominant, and just special. It was a special performance. The athleticism, the strength, the three ball that he added along with the downhill ability. And you have to add in as an extra bonus how he handled all the distractions, noise, just flat out, just the nastiness of what he went into for opposing buildings. And it looks like it was unjust, that it wasn't right for him to handle that. Again, him being not guilty, we don't know the entire full story, but it does look like that was not something that he should have went through, and it's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate that he went through that. But not only did he get through it, he thrived. He thrived, and he took Illinois where they felt like they should have went, and they won the Big Ten tournament, and they went to the Elite Eight for the first time in 19 years. So I know that another kind of subplot of this, and there are different talking points. Some are going to wonder, how should we view transfers who come in? Is it weird putting a guy up in the rafters who only spent 2 years at Illinois that ultimately didn't choose Illinois out of high school? I don't worry about that personally. We're trying to honor players that came in and exceeded at a special level, at an exceptional level.
I think the 2 years helps too. If he was a 1 year transfer where he spent 3 years at Illinois, then he spent his 3 years at Texas Tech.
That's fair.
4th year at Illinois, and then was gone, and it was like Marcus Damask or whatever, where it's a 1 year guy.
Mm-hmm.
That gets a little different, but you at least had 2 full years to really kind of grow that connection and see him grow as a player. I mean, the difference between his true senior year and his super senior year in 23 and 24 was remarkable. He was good his first season. He was on a completely different level. You saw him improve, And so you still got to see that process play out. So I think that helps a little bit. I think it'd be a little different. Wouldn't change if he had the same season, but it was his only year at Illinois. It wouldn't change anything. Like, that'd still be one of the most memorable seasons.
Yeah.
But I think it helps a little bit that Illinois fans did really get to grow a connection with him over 2 seasons more so than just a guy that was in for 5 months and gone. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, no, I fully agree with that. I definitely agree with that in terms of the attachment to him, just the legacy he's able to leave in 2 years.
There's nobody in the rafters that spent 1 year at Illinois. You said there was a couple that have spent 2.
Nick Anderson only played 2 seasons, was here for 3 years, but didn't play his freshman year 2 seasons. I think Kenny Battle maybe is another one, transferred in from NIU. Correct me if I'm wrong there on the Max Twin City Recycling text line. But, yeah, 2 years at Illinois, and I believe he's up there. So there are some that have played kind of a similar sample size. 217 adds in there. Not that this is part of the criteria, but good to have a Chicago kid. It's a home state guy and somebody that Illinois recruited heavily out of high school, didn't get him, but then to bring him home and for him to do that, especially he's the poster child in the transfer portal era for what Illinois hopes transfers to be. For guys to come back home, but just to come in and to be able to take your game to another level and thrive and be a star and be highly marketable, highly compensated, and highly successful, not only individually but for the team-wise as well. So Illinois should want his jersey up there, and I'm not saying that to, say that they don't want it, but when he goes and gets picked in the NBA draft, and right now he's getting forecasted as a first-rounder, which Illinois should want as much exposure to a guy getting drafted in the first round as they can get because it's been so long and that's so important in recruiting that whenever they bring in, particularly to the texter's point, a guy from Chicago or just anybody that wants to be everybody out there wants to be a first-round draft pick. There's one in the rafters that was coached by Brett Underwood that was on this court recently. That stuff really, really matters, especially if he, has a long career in the NBA, or if he's very successful in the NBA, which is within the realm of possibility. So this was I think a no-brainer to a lot of people, if not almost everyone. And I'm glad that Josh Whitman made the sensible and right decision to put him up there, and that's done. It's open and shut. I asked Josh in kind of a follow-up, like, how'd you come to this decision? Did you talk to Brad about it? And he's like, it was pretty straightforward. Pretty obvious, and that's that.
You were right on Kenny Battle. 2 years played, although he was here for a 3rd year along with Nick Anderson too, or in the same boat as Nick Anderson where he redshirted a year and then played 2. So nobody with less than 2 is up there, which I think is right. Like it would be different with a 1 year. As good as a year could be, I feel like it'd be a little bit different that way. But I think 2 years, it's I guess it's different in a sense that you would have played for another college, but really him playing 2 years, his senior year, and then a 5th year isn't much different than if a freshman, sophomore came in like a Nick Anderson.
Right.
And then left for the NBA. Like it's the same amount of time. And there's no use even harping on that point because everyone agrees that this is well-deserved.
Yeah. And I think in the right case, now if he came in for 1 year, like if Marcus Damask had the year that Shannon had, and was a consensus All-American, he, by the criteria, would be going up there, and I don't think anybody would have a problem with it.
I think you got to start getting used to these cases because you're going to see them more and more now with this with the transfer portal. There's going to be another guy that comes in and probably maybe plays 3 years at another school, and now with the COVID year gone, you can only play up to your normal 4-year allotment as in the past, and I'm sure there's going to be another case across colleges where a guy comes and develops for 3 years and then enters the portal for his senior year, is an All-American, maybe leads a team to deep postseason run, and that guy becomes a program legend for his new school, even though he only spent a 4th of his career there, and he's probably going to get honored by that school and not the one he was at for the first 3 years. That's going to happen a lot.
It very well could, and there's still the possibility, like the old school way, the old school one and done. Carmelo Anthony, if they put, I don't know how Syracuse goes about honoring former players and if they put jerseys up in the rafters or whatnot, but if I'm Syracuse and I get a once-in-a-generation freshman who helps lead my team to a national
he's
title.
got to be in the Raptors.
I'm sure he's in the
Carrier
Raptors.
Dome.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So, like, if there was a version of that at Illinois, then that would be very within reason to put that one in the Raptors as well. Jimmy, let's get your take on this. I know you go to Purdue. Audible boos across anybody driving and listening.
Let me have it.
It's all right. You're good. But just kind of, does Purdue put jerseys in the Raptors? Number one is the first question. Number two, how do you view the thought of guys maybe transferring in, and what should be the benchmark for a quote unquote legacy, or is it just based on production in a given season and that seems right? Does it seem right that Terrence would be an honored Illini based on what he did?
Oh, for sure. So for us, I think it's just automatic if you're an All-American, and that's it. So you get it, you get a banner up, and then the amount of times you were an All-American, you get stars on there. But it's not like a retiree thing. So
right,
it's like
right.
somebody will be wearing the 15 jersey at some point, which will look weird. But the kind of example I thought about this was Kawhi with the Raptors, because he was only there 1 year, leads them to their only title ever, and then dips. Like, does his number get retired? Like, that's kind of weird. In the NBA, it's a lot different because 1 year out of your whole career is a lot less than 1 out of 4. But for Shannon, I think he completely deserved this. It's been the best postseason stretch for the team since 2005. He was the star in the postseason. He had 6 games straight, and in that 6 games, he averaged 30 points a game. And I said if Purdue played Illinois in the conference tournament, I didn't think we were going to win. I didn't think we were going to win a third game. So we didn't play, but I think that he's absolutely deserved to be in the Raptors. And there's a lot of guys in the Raptors. So, I mean, I think a guy like
now
that.
the 36th, I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, I think he brings memory. I think it's a memory thing. Like, what was your impact on the program? They don't make the Elite Eight without him. Like, there was so much hype around the team in his 2 years there. I think it's a no-brainer for sure.
And he really successfully bridged that gap between post Io and Kofi at Illinois. There were questions of, like, not that it was going to fall off a cliff, and what Brad did in that window was all going to be, well, you know, it was going to be hard to climb that mountain again to get back at that peak. Or even beyond. Obviously, they went beyond in the postseason because they didn't get to the second weekend with those guys. But to immediately, right after Kofi is gone, you get Terrence Shannon, and yes, Matthew Meyer at the same time. But just in a 2 year span with Terrence Shannon, you have yet another All-American level player, another jersey that's hung up there, and you win another Big Ten title. Yes, albeit a tournament title, not a regular season title, which is definitely worth differentiating, but to go to the Elite Eight. So I think that's super important because it's crucial of building consistency and a foundation that stretches past 2 All-Americans that helps Brad continue to put the momentum forward and try to make this a program that's lasting, not just a window that was successful and fun and memorable.
Yeah, and landing him kind of represented where Illinois had gotten to after the Iowa and Kofi year because they were losing that whole team. Well, it was Kofi came back for another year after Iowa left, but that Big Ten title team in 2022, you lost all 5 starters, 4 of 5 starters.
Trent, DeMonte, Kofi, Plummer, Grandison.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden it was
Curbelo.
Well,
but
that wasn't much
RJ
of a loss.
stayed, right?
Did he stay for one more year?
Yeah,
he did, but he wasn't a starter
there was so
that
much
season.
hype around him.
Yeah, I know.
But
Trust me, I know.
The point being that there was a point after that where now Io and Kofi are both gone. Where is Brad going to go now? Can he still sustain where he had Illinois those last 3 seasons, and what's he going to do next now, losing this entire roster, and then getting Terrence and developing him into the star he was, and then getting to the Elite Eight 2 years later kind of represented the fact that, yeah, this is going to be a consistent winner now. Illinois is not only an attractive place for talented players like Terrence to want to come and finish his career, but like you said, just bridging that gap and being able to continue on the path that Illinois had been on and actually break through even further than those. I mean, those Iowa and Kofi teams, those 2 guys are program legends. They didn't get to the Elite Eight. Terrence Shannon led a team to the Elite Eight. It's not something you do all the time, especially at Illinois, as Illinois fans are aware.
They are very
It's not
aware
something you do very often. So Terrence is one of the best players to play here at Illinois. At least the season he had last year is one of the best ever, and I can't wait to see that jersey go up. Hopefully there's a game next year, and he can come back and can get that thing up there and look at it every time you're in State Farm Center for the rest of time.
Would you put him above Io all time as all time Illini?
His legacy,
that's a tough one.
His legacy as an Illini, absolutely not. But I think he had a better season last year than Io ever had.
And I think for Io, where I would give him the advantage is he brought the program back from darkness. His freshman year was still a missed tournament.
Absolutely,
they were below 500.
Yeah. So you felt it that season, in town, and I'm never really was a big Illini fan, but I just remember wow, the program having big energy around it for the first time in a long time. So I think that impact, not to take away from anything that Shannon did, because going to Elite Eight is huge, but I think what Io did was probably a little more impressive.
No, I think Io was more impactful for Illinois, just in terms of, like you said, his commitment marked the turnaround for the program after a bunch of down years, and his career kind of was the renaissance of Illinois basketball, whereas Terrence Shannon just kind of continued what he had started and probably reached a higher peak than he did. But there's no question. In terms of Illinois legacy, Io is probably going to be remembered as fondly as almost anybody in Illinois history based on what his career meant for returning the program to glory, kind of.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with all of that. I think he's up there. He's probably up there with D. Brown. He's not. Maybe D might have the step on the highest pedestal there because of the just the charisma, the popularity, the one-man fast break on the cover of Sporting News, and ultimately getting to the national title game, which is the step that no one else has gotten to in Illinois history. Of course, Darren Williams is on the team, Luther Head, Roger Powell, James Augustine, worth mentioning for sure. But yeah, Io, and Big Def says this well here on the Max Twin City Recycling text line, there's no Shannon unless Io comes first. And there's no doubt about it. For him to bring Illinois back, of course, it took Kofi too, it took Trent too, but Io was really that trailblazer and the hometown kid that did it. And he was a first-team consensus All-American, very deservingly so. Probably deserved more consideration. If he didn't break his nose and get a concussion, there might have been more of a real talk around, should Luka Garza be a shoo-in for National Player of the Year, or should Io DeSumo get more consideration for a team that was better than Iowa that year and beat Iowa that year? So, unfortunately, Iowa's injury, that kind of ended that conversation there. And I'm not trying to take anything away from Luka, who had ridiculous numbers, but yes, I fully agree. Shannon's on-paper statistics better this past year than what Io did. I also think Terrence was a better defender than what Io was, at least what he showed in college.
And he led you to a better postseason result.
Yes,
that's the one notch on Iowa, which is unfair to him because he had really one game. The Drexel game against a 16 seed is
sure
nothing. He had one chance in the tournament, and it didn't go well for him, but that is the one, Terrence Shannon led you to an Elite Eight, and that was such a meaningful accomplishment for this last year's Illinois team. And I just think, the single season individually that Terrence had last year is really hard to top by anybody, let alone Io, that's ever played at Illinois. But I think in terms of your overall legacy and impact on a program, I don't think it's a debate, really.
I'm with you. I don't know if you guys have come across this. Maybe it's because they're just lighting up my mentions, but you've seen how invested and involved UConn fans are in this news today?
I commented on that earlier today to somebody. I'm like, what is the deal with UConn fans are on your tweet saying that Terrence Shannon was going up in the rafters. I see 4 UConn fans saying, for what?
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy. I don't know why they're so passionate.
Did they only watch UConn basketball? So when UConn plays a team, that's their only impression of a team. They don't watch any other college.
I mean, would you watch Big Ten basketball?
Yeah, well, that's a great point.
If you were a Big East fan, because it's pretty dire.
That is the thing. If you're a UConn fan, do you want to watch any of these other bum teams based on the fact
But
that
like, why do you care? That's kind of weird. Like, if it was your rival, maybe, but that's kind of odd for an out-of-conference team that you just demolished.
It would have been different, yeah, if Terrence maybe predicted victory over UConn
Sure.
or something like that. And yeah, I mean, he was bad in that game. He he disappeared, getting locked up by Castle, and no one on Illinois was good. When you go on when you're on the opposite side of a 30-0 run, I think it's fair to say. I mean, Damask was good in the first half. He's really the only reason that game was close, also because UConn was missing shots. But I just found it a little curious or confusing why UConn was popping up and so vocal on that one. I just think they're maybe because of
I mean, you win back-to-back national
just
titles. You
just
get a little.
enjoy that,
they're going
man.
after
That
everybody.
ego gets a little large after that.
Should Zach Edey not go up in the Raptors?
I guess not. I guess he's terrible. He only scored 38 or whatever in the game.
Right. Yeah.
That was
That's
so
right. That's
funny.
different. That's
when
a fair point to
when people
differentiate.
were trying to like hold that over Edie's head in the national title game, like
He was
maybe hold it over like Fletcher Lawyer's
all
head.
the
or
other
something, like,
four guys.
Zach Edey
No.
had 35 on
As-
your center. You claim was the better player. I don't. What are we doing?
And he
here?
fouled out too, I think.
Yeah.
Well, as soon as I saw them going 1-on-1 against Zach, I was like, oh, we're not winning this game because he's gonna go off and that's it. Nobody else is gonna score.
Yeah. Well, I just think it's part of the. Let's let UConn be the villain right now.
Sure, whatever.
And people will celebrate because we had this conversation when Hurley came back or decided to not leave, I should say, UConn, that maybe they can be this. He leading the charge can be this villain character in college basketball. It's not at the point where we're going to celebrate if Duquesne beats them in the first round, but maybe we'll get there. Maybe if their fans talk enough trash and are you guys exhausted by the 100 different stories that have come out about Hurley, and there's like 100 different reasons. I feel like every time he talks to somebody else, he tells a different version of a story, or there's something different written of like, this was the reason. It was his family. No, actually, he told
His wife started crying when he told him. Did you see that one?
No, I saw that he asked Alex Caravan, and if Caravan wouldn't have came back, he may not have returned. Yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, LeBron still would have been 40.
He probably just realized that. He probably was like, oh, really? LeBron's that old?
Yeah,
right.
right.
Maybe not.
Anyways. All right, if you want to win, you can. 217-359-2255 on the Max Twin City Recycling text line. Lon's not here to sing the jingle. I might do it at some point today.
On, Kyle. We got to get Kyle to do it.
Kyle needs to do it. We did have one for Wade that I'll get to on the other side of this break. We'll also inform you on a scheduling update. I'm sure you've seen it, but we'll talk about it. Bradley Wood, not scared to load up this schedule. The non-con is juicy, and this one has plenty of storylines and a lot of talent that'll be on the floor on a holiday. So we'll tell you all about that coming up next. This is The Drive.
It seems like the cost of everything is on the rise, but Erie Insurance can help make sure your auto insurance premium isn't one of them. Avoid rate increases with Erie Rate Lock. Even if you have a claim, your rates won't go up until you change a car, driver, or address.
Your Erie agent in Champaign is Thomas & Ellers Insurance.
Erie Rate Lock is not available in all states. Other conditions and limitations at erieinsurance.com. Go to erieinsurance.com for company licensure and product details.
Tired of trying to keep up with Old Man Jones and his perfect lawn? Spring Green knows that we can't all spend hours a day creating that perfect shade of green, killing off all that crabgrass, and making sure every insect in the neighborhood doesn't call your lawn home this year. At Spring Green, they take the hassle out of your lawn headache with services such as lawn fertilization, weed control, grub and insect control, lime treatments, and even bush and tree care. Let the experts at Spring Green help you this season. For more information, visit them at spring-green.com. Spring Green, America's neighborhood lawn care team.
Tim, I want to know more about what you're doing with Dedicated Diesel, Dixie Chopper. You're going to the fair in where?
Ford County Fair in Melvin, Illinois. I'll be there Monday, the 24th through the 29th on Saturday with some great deals on some Dixie Choppers. We'll be locally unveiling the new Falcon, incredible mower that they've put out. We'll have an introductory offer of $7,999 with a $500 factory rebate. And I might be able to swing some special deals on that as well. We'll have our Z2 and Z2 HPs there, lowest price you'll ever get, and I'll deal with you direct. Come up and get a show more.
It'll be fun to be there in Melvin, Illinois at Ford County Fair. Okay, and again, once you get on a Dixie Chopper, you probably will never go back.
Dedicated Diesel, you can stop by and see Andy at 1313 Triumph Drive in Urbana, or call him at 217-328-0562. Dedicated Equipment on Facebook.
Racing, racing, racing. Friday Night Lights at Farmer City Raceway is a blast. Only $15 admission and kids 12 and under are free. Make arrangements to get your RV and reserve a place to camp. This Friday, June 21st, has Nutrien late models, Dyer's Top Rods mods with the full show and kids mods. Head to 850 Grove Street in Farmer City with hot laps at 6:30. Details at farmercityracing.com. You'll buy the whole seat, but you'll only need the edge.
Illini fans, join us in Memorial Stadium as we honor 100 years of tradition with $100 football season tickets. Don't miss a moment this season and lock in your tickets for Homecoming, Dad's Day, and a special rededication of Memorial Stadium on October 19th against the University of Michigan. Experience more cherished moments in Memorial Stadium this season and get your $100 season tickets at fightingillini.com.
Hi, I'm Tyler Weaver, president of Carpet Weavers Flooring and Furniture Gallery. It's time to come home to Carpet Weavers. We don't want you to just like your new floors. We want you to love them. From waterproof floors and carpet to furnitures and design advice, we've got a team of experts on your side. We'll get you the best price and the best quality products. And complete your home with furniture and accessories. Buy it all with free financing too. Come home to Carpet Weavers, where floors, furniture, and family meet.
At Pards in Urbana, the boots just keep on coming. They're known for their huge collection of men's cowboy boots, women's cowgirl boots, kids' boots, and even shoes. If you're searching for top footwear brands, look no further than Pards. They carry a wide variety, including Ariat, Dan Post, Smoky Mountain, Roper, Double H, and more. And if socks or accessories are what you need, they've got all your high-quality essentials. Since 1968, Pards has been serving their customers with high-quality merchandise. And if you haven't been to Pards in a while, a lot has changed. Go check them out just off University Avenue in Urbana.
BMW, Buick, GMC, Honda, and Subaru. Welcome to Sarah Champagne. We can handle all your car repairs on site, including paintless dent repair, bumpers, windshields, everything in between. We have an amazing selection of new or pre-owned vehicles to choose from. Shop from home and buy online or reserve your vehicle before it hits our website or dealership. Sarah Champagne is home of the Sarah One Price Promise, delivering an honest and transparent buying experience. Hurry in or shop online at sarahchampagne.com.
You have money laying all around your house. You just don't know it. And no, I don't mean selling your great-grandma's good china. I mean all the old metal items you don't want to use or get rid of. Don't pay someone to haul it away. Bring it into Max Twin City Recycling and get paid to have it taken off your hands. They love new customers and are more than willing to walk you through their process step by step. Come check them out at 2808 North Lincoln Avenue in Urbana.
Starting it over is what we do at Max Twin City Recycling.
Jimmy, what happened, man?
I have no idea. Matt's losing it.
Matt Painter
is in
let
shambles.
a 7'9" big man out of Canada go by the wayside.
Canada, the IMG. It's just like it was destined, and then he just. I don't even know how old this kid is.
Don't know.
But he's 7'9", 290 as of now. So that's scary.
Kyle brought it to our attention. I don't know how I missed this. He's in the
Olivier something?
Olivier Roux? Or Ryu, whichever way.
We'll know the name soon.
Yeah. 2024 class headed to Florida.
Going to the swamp. Well, we got a 7'3" guy for that class. So
that's true. And one that was on Team USA. Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah. So he's ranked really low. I feel like this is just a no-brainer. Just
305 according to 24/7 Composite.
And he's going to get taller according to
I guess.
Some people. He's a teenager.
Just reading the Bleacher Report story here. He was, 6'11" in 6th grade. He was 6'1" at 8 years old. Can you believe that?
What did he come out the womb as? That's the thing. Was he like 4'2" out the womb?
It says his parents are tall. His mother's 6'2".
His
father's 6'8".
He was already a 6-footer playing in like the preschool.
Yeah. I think we're going to take Olivier with our first pick. Yeah. every time.
I don't know if you've seen any of the highlight clips. There was one that was circling Twitter yesterday. He he doesn't even have to get off the ground to dunk. Like, you just throw it to him and he just sticks his hand in the rim. He gets off the ground like 1 inch.
Kind of like Tiny on the Globetrotters. Remember that guy? I think
know.
he was. I think there was just this big white dude, and he was tiny, and he just did standing dunks without jumping at all. But I don't think he was very mobile. This kid looks like pretty well built. Like, he's not awkward looking. So that might be a problem for the SEC in the future.
That's Todd Golden down there, right?
I'm not sure.
Todd Golden.
He's just tall debates are gonna run wild with the 7'9".
Yeah.
I can't wait for our dumb fans to be like, "Oh yeah, he's just tall," and forget about. Come on, guys.
But it obviously was wrong with Zach, and this guy's got a long way until he's Zach Edey. We'll see. We'll see ultimately how that goes. All right, let's get to. I want to tackle first Wade's question. And admittedly, I don't have a surefire answer, but he did ask on the Max Twin City Recycling text line. Before we move on from Terrence, can you confirm or deny that I heard TSJ lost most of his NIL because of the lawsuit? I can't confirm or deny exactly. I have heard some things that when he first got suspended, that there was a holdup in some of. I can't say all of his NIL, but there were some issues. I know that the collective had to have some communication and some debating, I guess, over how to proceed. And there had to be some actions, I think, later on to stop the disruption of flow of the NIL, what Terrence was supposed to get. I don't know that I can't sit here and say I know exactly how much of what I've viewed is probably $750,000 to $800,000 of what he should have gotten or was in line to get. I don't know that he got shorted a big amount or anything like that. I ultimately don't know, Wade. So I'm apologies on that front. I can tell you that I had heard there were complications. I had heard there had to be a push to kind of say, okay, he's playing for us. We need to make sure this is still flowing his way. He's our guy, type of thing. I am familiar with. I know that somebody earlier in the week texted that one of Terrence's lawyers spoke on DWS over the weekend with Lauren and Steve and mentioned him losing out on some of his NIL when that suspension came down following his arrest. I had heard something similar. Just don't know how much got withheld or just didn't flow his way ultimately. If I get an answer on that, I'll be sure to circle back for you. But let's move on from Terrence. Let's talk about a big scheduling addition for Brad Underwood and company. They've already put in place the Alabama game in Tuscaloosa, the game at Madison Square Garden against Duke. Tennessee's coming to town as the return game of the home and home. And you also, of course, are going to have Missouri, the bragging rights game.
They say that's going to be on a Sunday this year?
It's going to be on a Sunday, December 22nd. Now, I will say, I know people are unhappy about that. I will say that you should be able to get a lot more fans there. Not that Illinois has struggled with that in recent years. Missouri, that's a little bit of a different story. Easier to get to St. Louis and plan a weekend around that game than if it's happening on a random Wednesday night. People, you like the December 21st on a Wednesday night at an 8 p.m. tip, it's hard to get there unless you are going to take time off and make the effort, which credit to the fans that make that trip every year. There's a lot of them that build that into when they plan to ask off for work or do what's necessary to do that. So I do think the weekend dynamic is good for attendance. And I understand though on a Sunday you're competing with the NFL. Speaking of which, competing with the NFL for Thanksgiving Day, Illinois going to play Arkansas. John Calipari and company, Chen Coleman on the Arkansas side against some familiar faces in Brad Underwood, Orlando Antigua. That is slotted for Thanksgiving Day on CBS. It will come after. Is it Bears Lions? It's going to be on CBS.
Ooh, watch your Bears and then
what a day.
Illinois, and then my Dolphins are at night against the Pack.
Wow! Oh,
nice.
Man. Those are awesome matchups all the way around. So there will be Illinois and Arkansas during Dallas and whoever they're playing, right? I'm guessing.
Yeah, I'm not sure who they're playing.
So you get the Cowboys,
and Dallas, and whoever I'm rooting for in that game.
Yeah, right. Exactly. The Cowboys on Fox, Illinois and Arkansas on the other side of
Giants, Dallas.
No one
Giants.
needs to see Dallas.
Everybody, that's on 3 times a year, even though they only play 2 times a year.
Exactly. So the Illini adding that one to the schedule. So what is the date on that? I should know this.
The 28th.
The 28th. So Illinois and Alabama, November 20th, and then Illinois and Arkansas, November 28th. So it's essentially an 8-day span. You're going to play 2 SEC squads, throw in Tennessee in December. It's a loaded schedule. It already was. And I knew that Brad, I'd heard from people around the program that they were trying to take one more big swing after getting that Duke game in line, getting that Bama game lined up. They're like, hey, we want one more game that really moves the needle and is a quad one opportunity and one that is an opportunity to capitalize also on just a program that's nationally relevant right now, coming off an Elite Eight. And you talk about TV money and the ability to be highly viewed. And look, Michigan State, was it Michigan State and Arizona last year? I think I mentioned that.
Yes.
They play in Vegas. Is that right?
I believe so.
Or maybe it was in California. Anyways, they played on Thanksgiving Day last year. Illinois not going to play Arkansas. What do you think? What do you guys think of that one?
Brad Underwood's putting his big boy pants on this offseason with his scheduling, that's for sure. Those 4 games are probably 4 top 20 teams pretty safely. Arkansas is maybe the one where you question. They completely overhauled things with John Calipari going in there, but he's brought some talent. He brought some guys with him from Kentucky. He's got some freshmen coming in. John L. Davis obviously is going to be the star of that team, but that's for marquee opportunities in the non-conference for an Illinois team that now I know the Duke game is coming in February, kind of oddly, but an Illinois team that's going to be brand new themselves, having to piece together 9 new rotation guys and. Hey, let's go test ourselves against Alabama and then Arkansas within 8 days of each other and see where we're at 3 weeks into the year. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a challenge though. I think you'd probably be happy just getting one of these games to stick on the top of your resume. Not to say you don't want to win all of them, obviously, but you're gonna get a lot of chances to get that marquee non-conference win, which as we've seen the last couple of years has been so important on your tournament resume, and Illinois is not going to lack opportunities for that, and it's fun. I always said, give me as many big-time non-conference games as possible. I'm not shying away from anybody. I want to watch good basketball. I'd rather watch Illinois and Arkansas than Illinois and Western Illinois. No offense. Yes. But, all these games, heck, schedule another one, Brad. Let's do it. Let's get a 5th on there. It's going to be fun, though. I'm excited for this one. And this matchup in particular, Illinois and Arkansas, is 2 teams that pretty much have brand new rosters. And then obviously the dynamic with Chin Coleman and with some of the recruits that these 2 have battled for already in one offseason. And
the Avicic brothers.
The Avicic brothers. That's a good point. I didn't realize that.
Big Z against Thomas
Big Z
Love.
against Big T. Let's go.
Let's see who's the biggest twin of them all.
Yeah, who is taller? Is it Big Z?
I don't know. I'd have to look that up. This is important information, right?
Yeah, I know. This is the biggest storyline in this game,
I would say. So Thomas Love 7'1". I don't know what
Big Z is 7'2".
Oh man.
So Big Z is the
you're giving up
tallest of them
so
all.
much height there.
Yeah, exactly. Jimmy, you like this for Illinois? And will you can you imagine yourself consuming some college hoops, maybe even though there is NFL football traditionally, as there always is on Thanksgiving Day?
So, I mean, this might be old-fashioned of me. I never liked collegiate teams playing on holidays. I always felt that should be a day off for them, like Thanksgiving and Christmas is. Now, I'm still going to watch if it's entertaining. Like, I'm not going to... Like, I'd prefer it would be different, but I'm definitely more of an NFL guy, but I'll probably keep an eye on that one. And I always love playing tough competition in the non-conference for basketball because I think the sport rewards it more so than it does in football. I think football, you can't really lose. Now it's different with the 12 team, but in the 4-team era, it really rewarded teams scheduling somewhat weaker competition and having the best record you possibly can. Basketball is the opposite. It's hard schedule, make sure that we have as much good basketball, and that's why the basketball non-conference is usually exceptional. It's fun right out of the gate, and these games in November and December will be fun to watch for sure.
Feast Week it's kind of like the unofficial welcoming of the college hoop season. I know we have games before that where you got there's no more Gavitt games, but that was in there. Of course, the Champions Classic that happens very early in the schedule, and there's some other games leading up to that. But I think for the national audience, that's one. I can't understand people that say, I don't watch college basketball until March or anything like that. But Feast Week is there's just so much there with the Maui and with the what's the one in
Atlantis, Battle for Atlantis.
Bad Boy Mowers.
Yeah, there's a lot of good ones, and Illinois not having one last year, not having an MTE to go to. They played a couple cupcakes around Thanksgiving. I think they played on Black Friday. I can't remember who it was that they welcomed in, but they were originally slotted to go to the Emerald Coast Classic. I'd heard they need to make that up because they were supposed to go there during COVID. Ultimately, they didn't love the field this year, so they kicked that down the road a little bit farther. They wanted to get tested. They wanted to have some big opportunities. And to fill that gap with this game, some won't love that it's on Thanksgiving, namely people's wives that probably cover the team. But yeah, I think that
wonder who we're talking about.
I don't know.
I don't know anybody that would affect. But
no idea.
No clue.
I do when you look at CBS Sports and their preseason top 25 as of right now. Illinois is going to play 4 top 15 teams in the non-conference. You got Bama number 2, you've got Duke number 9, you've got Arkansas 13 and Tennessee 14. And Arkansas, yes, even though a lot of turnover. And when Calipari met with the media for the first time, said, I don't have there's no roster. There's nobody to talk to. John L. Davis, really, really good. Familiar with him from the Jimmy V Classic last year. FAU, obviously. Jonas Adu from Tennessee, one of the best big guys in the portal this past year. They get Trayvon Brazil back, that was a big injury for Musselman and company last season. He's very talented. DJ Wagner from Kentucky, Big Z. There's a lot of hype about who he can be. He had some real moments last year in a season that was interrupted by the eligibility thing with the NCAA. Boogie Flan coming in as part of that class. Jerry Jones said, I'm gonna pay anybody that was in line to go to Kentucky with Cal to come over here twice as much, and they got a nice chunk of their class to go over there. And we mentioned this, so there were some whispers of this game being negotiated a few weeks ago. At that time, we kind of crossed paths with, Arkansas is the favorite to land Coleman Hawkins. Can you imagine Coleman Hawkins being in this game? I'm kind of glad that he's not. Yeah. I think for Illinois fans and their conflicts of interest, and in the case that if Arkansas were to beat them and then Coleman beats them and that whole kind of thing, but wouldn't that have been another layer?
Incredible. That would have been maybe the most hyped up Illinois non-conference game in a long time if Coleman Hawkins was on Arkansas.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that would be wild. I don't even know what is there a comparison there for an Illinois rematch?
Not with someone that's been on their team and now on the other side, I wouldn't say.
And I can't even think of a Purdue one equivalent.
I'm sure we'll see it at some point here in this new era of college hoops, but yeah, that's a different level of you got twin brothers going against each other. You got Coleman, a 4-year legacy guy on the other side of it. You've got
Orlando Antigua, who just left Cal for Illinois.
He left Illinois for Cal. He left Cal then to go back to Illinois.
Chin Coleman.
Yeah, Chin Coleman.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun one.
A lot of plot there.
I love it. This is the kind of matchup that you'd expect the NCAA tournament committee to be interested in. And now these teams are saying, we're going to do it for you. Kansas City. I should have mentioned that. Did I mention that earlier? That's where the game's going to be. Kansas City.
I was wondering that.
Now, Matt Norlander on X, or Twitter, I still call it Twitter, said that originally the discussion centered around Nashville, but ultimately they pivoted to Kansas City.
Oh, that would be such a fun trip.
Either one of those. Now, both.
I love both, though. Yeah,
great
some
locations.
Good barbecue there.
Yes. So
maybe Lon will go back.
Yeah.
Don't give Lon an excuse to travel.
No, we'll be off the show. There'll be no show anyway, so we don't have to worry about it. He can go wherever he wants on that day.
On Thanksgiving.
I think he goes wherever he wants on any day anyway. But, all right, we'll talk more about what Josh Whitman hit on today at the annual media roundtable. We'll also hear from Josh Whitman before we get out of here. Stick with us as we transition into hour 2. This is The Drive.
You've changed thousands of diapers, played hours of peekaboo and duck, duck, goose because you do anything for your kids. That's why it's so important to protect them with life insurance from State Farm. State Farm agent Kurt Lenschow will help make it easy and affordable to help you protect your family no matter what the future holds. Because for the people you do anything for, life insurance could mean everything. Call State Farm agent Kurt Lenschow in Champaign-Urbana today. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. You're listening to WSJK ESPN 93.5 Tuscola, Champaign-Urbana, your home for the St. Louis Cardinals.
Oklahoma. Captain Jack Kennedy of the Tuscaloosa County Sheriff's Office says there may be others.
If you look at his criminal history, he was continuously escalating his violent behavior. So he is now at least responsible for 3, possibly 4 homicides that we know about in the last 2 months.
Drake faces trial in multiple jurisdictions and is also wanted on federal charges of parole violation.
Fox's Jack Callahan. In Houston, 2 men are now facing capital murder charges in the death of a 12-year-old girl who reportedly may have lived in the same apartment complex where the suspects were arrested today. Her body was found Monday in a creek. New York has a new law aimed at protecting kids on social media.
New York Governor Kathy Hochul signed into law a measure that's going to let parents block their children from getting social media posts that have been suggested by a platform's algorithm. The governor says those posts keep children hanging onto their phones.
The damaging effect of social media's addictive algorithms, weaponized to use children's personal information, extracting millions of data points about their preferences, what they want to do, where they're going.
The law also means social media feeds for people under 18 would be limited to posts from accounts they follow. And platforms won't be allowed to use or sell personal data of kids without parental consent.
Fox's Jill Nato. Some critics say the measure limits free speech. President Biden just declaring a major disaster in New Mexico where 2 wildfires have burned more than 20,000 acres and hundreds of homes, killing at least 2 people as crews continue to do battle. America is listening to Fox News.
When life spells heartburn, how do you spell relief? ROLAIDS.
What about when life spells fried chicken?
ROLAIDS.
4th cup of coffee?
Still ROLAIDS.
Extra cheesy pizza?
Rolaids always spells relief. Rolaids' powerful dual-active formula begins neutralizing acid on contact to fight your heartburn fast. So, when life spells heartburn, Rolaids spells relief. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
I'm Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I learned about atrial fibrillation the hard way. My symptoms would come and go. Shortness of breath, fatigue. I kept going. Then I got so lightheaded, I couldn't. My doctor said I have AFib, so I'm about 5 times more likely to have a stroke. Other symptoms, irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain can come and go, but the risk of stroke stays. If you have symptoms, tell a doctor. Visit notimetowait.com.
Sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
Actor Kiefer Sutherland says his father did what he loved and loved what he did. Donald Sutherland has died. He was 88.
He was one of the most recognizable actors of his time. He was starting around 1970 in Dirty Dozen, Kelly's Heroes, Ordinary People, even in the Hunger Games where he played that manipulative President Snow.
Happy Hunger Games, and may the odds be ever in your favor.
Sutherland received an Emmy Award, 2 Golden Globes, and other accolades, but, it doesn't really capture how prolific he really was.
Fox's William Lajeunesse. Sutherland received an honorary Oscar in 2017. No cause of death was given. 2 days after the death of Willie Mays, Major League Baseball will honor the Say Hey Kid tonight, an event planned before he died Tuesday at age 93.
MLB will play a game between the San Francisco Giants and St. Louis Cardinals at the oldest ballpark in America, 114-year-old Rickwood Field in Birmingham, Alabama, where Willie Mays played for the Birmingham Black Barons of the Negro American League in 1948, and where current seating capacity is around 8,300. Tonight's game on Fox TV will be a first, an all-black umpiring crew. The 5 men will wear patches to honor MLB's first black ump, Emmett Ashford. One day before his death, Willie Mays stated, "My heart will be with all of you who are honoring the Negro League ball players who should always be remembered." Jared Max, Fox News.
That Giants-Cardinals game tonight on Fox starts at 7:15 Eastern. The LA Lakers reportedly have a new head coach who has no coaching experience. Sources telling the Associated Press the job goes to J.J. Redick, who just retired from the NBA in 2021 after playing for 6 teams, turning to broadcasting. He reportedly met with the Lakers last weekend, accepting the head coaching position less than 2 weeks after UConn's Dan Hurley turned it down. The Dow rallies up about 300 points. The S&P hits a new high, but then finishes in the red. The Nasdaq also losing, snapping a 7-record streak. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News.
Here's a look
At ABC Heating and Air, it's our promise to help you always be comfortable. Do you need rescued because you're burning hot? Do you need rescued because your air is shot? Call ABC Heating and Air at 352-5400 and let us rescue you from the heat. ABC Heating and Air, 352-5400. Can't you see you need to call me at ABC? Call ABC Heating and Air. That's ABC Heating and Air, 352-5400.
On Sunday, June 23rd, the Cardinals host the Giants. And that day, 25,000 fans ages 21 and over will leave with their very own St. Louis Stars hat, courtesy of Budweiser. That's not all. 10,000 kids ages 15 and younger entering with a ticket will also receive a Kids Growth poster featuring fan favorite Lars Nootbaar, thanks to Missouri Farmers Care. Stick around after the game for the High 2 Kids Run the Bases. For more details, visit cardinals.com/promotions.
This is Lars Nootbaar, St. Louis Cardinals for the Lou.
It is The Drive with Sam Piper, ESPN Radio 93.5. You'll hear from Josh Whitman at some point this hour. Met with the media today for his annual media roundtable. So many different topics and some big ones that are very notable. I feel like every year, I'm assuming there's a lot to digest and circle back, which Josh did a great job of really going sport by sport and giving you kind of a State of the Union on where things are at, particularly with notable things like basketball and coming off the Elite Eight, and even mentioned today. I thought it was interesting that said there's a possibility that they will sell out with season tickets this year. I know that's probably a hope. I don't know how close they are to that, but I felt like that was interesting. Just, of course, giving a lot of credit to Brad Underwood and the program for getting where they feel like they should be, and for Terrence, the news that we highlighted in the first hour with him going into the rafters as well. He talked about football, but really the big picture things that will affect all sports, some more than others and in differing ways, as you push forward, is the ruling in court that there will be revenue sharing. There will be the potential and also the task and the obligation, although there is no requirement of a baseline, like you have to spend up to this. You have to spend at least this. Now, there is a maximum cap on it as far as sharing revenue with student athletes, up to use Josh Whitman's number here. I think it was originally reported as $20 million or thereabouts. Josh said today it'd be $22 million as the max that athletic departments could share among their student athletes. Now, how would that be broken up? There is not official wording on that, but Josh said today the expectation is that Title IX would apply to revenue sharing. Thus, and now I admittedly had to do some digging on this and how that ultimately means. That I even, you'll hear in the clip that we play with Josh, I said, Josh, dumb question here, but are we talking 50-50 split between $22 million, $11 million on one side, $11 million on the other? And he said, well, it factors in participation rates. So the short of it is that, so the student population, you look at how much of the percentage is male and female, so that representation has to then be equal in sports for scholarships, for the benefits and those type of things. And now you're going to introduce as Josh Whitman said that they're prepared to, the revenue sharing to be in that realm as well. So if you look on the University of Illinois website, it says a student population 54% male, 46% female. So if Illinois, and they do intend to, pay all the way up through the $22 million that they can get to, and Josh diagrammed today why he felt like that's important for Illinois to remain as competitive as they can be. He feels like they need to find a way, and we can talk about how Illinois will ultimately come up with the $22 million. They need to pay in full so that they can be as competitive as possible across the spectrum, because there will obviously be very rich athletic departments that will be doing so. So 54% for male athletes of the $22 million would be $11.9 million given to male athletes. And Josh flat out, and wasn't afraid to say it today, most, if not almost all of that piece of the pie would go to football and men's basketball. Those are your revenue generating sports. That's where you need to be the most competitive. That's really determines a lot of the future of the program itself, the athletic department itself, the athletic program itself, and really the pecking order nationally and also in the Big Ten.
Can I ask one quick question just
Yes.
to clarify on Title IX?
Yes.
All male sports and all female sports are included in these percentages. You can't, because for football, obviously, there's no female equivalent for football. So you can't say, okay, we're going to share $12 million with football. Now we got $10 million left. Now we're going to split the 54-46. It has to be 54% all male sports, 46% all female sports. You can't break it down by sport.
Right. That's my understanding. So it would all be all female athletes would be in one category. Okay. All male athletes would be in another category. 54% of the revenue would go to the male side based on representation, and then 46%. And I'm not an expert on the subject. I'm not a Title IX expert, but I have been reading on the different interpretations, or just saying to get my interpretation right on this, reading different resources. So 46% of $22 million is $10.1 million to female athletes. Now, that would be, based on what Josh said, divvied up widely across a number of different sports. Of course, volleyball and women's basketball would be prominent places to get involved with that. He did say that if they are given indication, and again, there is no official word of this, that Title IX does not apply, that they are prepared to push forward and operate differently. And I would assume, and if I was in the position of Josh Whitman, and I'm not saying that I'm differing from his philosophy on this as well, I think it would be just like male sports, the current plan. If it was across all sports, $22 million, spend as you please, I'd give a lot, if not almost all of it, to my men's basketball and football programs. Now, you could select different sports and say, men's golf has been a great program for us, and we are proud of our tradition success. Mike Small deserves some commitment on that side as far as this goes, and we want to continue to be at the top of a top 10 program in golf, if not top 5, and we're going to give $500,000 or $1 million, whatever that number is, of the 22 to Mike Small's golfers to make sure that we can use that as a recruiting tool and compensate those golfers even more so than a lot of programs out there. So this introduces the conversation, and I'm not trying to rag on anybody here. I don't know how it makes sense to revenue share with programs that are not revenue generating. I don't know how that stands up. I know that Title IX is not only just an NCAA thing, and before people are banging the table about NCAA and saying another stupid thing that the NCAA would do. Again, they haven't done it yet. Josh Whitman, though, I'm sure he's talked to people, and the reason that he framed it as such is like Title IX is expected to be involved is because he's heard that from people. Title IX is a federal law, but I think there's going to have to be some real considerations here of how much it should apply, because it doesn't make sense whether you're talking about men's sports that don't generate revenue, women's sports that don't generate revenue. And as Josh outlines, the importance of men's basketball and football to take precedent, because they're the ones that generate the money and fun to keep everybody's lights on, give the uniforms, the travel budget, whatever. That's where the revenue needs to be shared. I don't know how logically it makes sense to do it any other way.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Yeah, I feel like that's just going to open up so many problems in the fact that we already, I mean, NIL's already gotten out of control. And before that, people were programs were paying players before that, under the table and not obviously public. I feel like this is going to be easily manipulated and exploited in that way, because ultimately what an athletic department wants to funnel their money to is basketball and football. I mean, that's what it all. I just feel like it's going to be hard because, like you said, it's a federal law, but I feel like it's just going to open up ways that athletic departments are going to realize that, look, we have to find a way to get more money to basketball and football, and that's going to, these blue blood basketball programs or these football programs that are just so dominant. I feel like it's like you said, it's not going to end up working that way. And I agree that just in principle too, like, it doesn't make sense if the entire subject is revenue sharing. Well, you have to be generating revenue to get a piece of that pie. Like, you need to be bringing in the money in order to then receive a share of that. And we know that obviously the two primary revenue generating sports are basketball and football. And to say that now, hey, and that's the other thing too, back to my original question with football being male only, like, now all of a sudden football's probably the program you're sending the most money to. So now all of a sudden the female equivalents of a lot of these sports are probably going to have to make more just to meet this quota.
Yeah.
From all the money you're sending towards men's football. So I think there's going to be so many complications to this, and I feel like there's going to be athletic departments trying to find ways to just manipulate this system, and that's going to, all of a sudden we're going to have more of these lawsuits and everything that just are going to open up a whole new can of worms. That's just such a headache.
It goes hand in hand with the conversation that I want to throw on the back end of this, and I want to separate them, but then introduce the other side of it, which is the NIL future, what that looks like in the future with revenue sharing. I've heard it from coaches. I heard it today from Josh Whitman. The desire to have NIL guardrails that are very stringent against pay for play, and to try to introduce a governing body, policing system to try to limit or eliminate, which I don't think you'll ever be able to do. That's another conversation we're going to get into. The just flat out inflated numbers that are getting thrown out to athletes just to put money in their pocket for the reasoning to keep them at school, to get them to your program, that aren't really indicative of their market value. Now, like Josh today brought up Caitlin Clark with State Farm, and you have a number of different other situations that are legitimate business deals that Caitlin's probably getting her market value for those commercials, for that publicity, for people that maybe do sponsored social media posts for corporations or brands that are on a national level that aren't attached to said university athletic department. Like FedEx in Memphis are widely and publicly connected, and you've got a number of different, I think it's Walmart in Arkansas, right? Am I right on that,
yeah,
guys?
that's in Arkansas.
So there's a number of other different ones where you could see maybe some, and it's not foul play. It's just using what you want to use to be able to do what you want to do with your own money. So we'll get to that when we get to that. But to Kyle's point, and I want to throw this to Jimmy as well, now this would not just be an Illinois issue. You'd have it for everybody in college sports. To try to pay up to the maximum on the male side, you have to pay the maximum on the female side. So you'd have to dish out $10 million on the female side in this instance at Illinois to be able to dish out the maximum $12 million on the male side. And I'm not trying to make this a male and female thing. I just think in general, whether you're talking about male sports that don't generate revenue. Now, I think it's great that they're going to, as we're seeing, they're considering altering or even lifting scholarship limits on certain sports. Like baseball has been constrained by how many scholarships you can give out, and you got to give out partial scholarships here and there, and maybe in a new realm with you're opening up the books to spend more money and whatever. Maybe that means more scholarships in baseball. Maybe that means more scholarships in sports that don't have a bunch of full rides given out. I think that's a potential way to reward those athletes for their time and their given excellence in that sport. But I just, it's tough to justify female or male or whatnot, any sport that doesn't make money, then pouring in maybe $10 million to those sports to make sure you could pay enough on the sports that matter the most in terms of revenue. Jimmy?
And so I kind of had two things to think of. So it's the revenue split is based off student population, correct?
Yes.
So like Purdue has been known as Purdue University of Men by some. I looked it up, 58% men, 42% women.
Okay.
So is that going to affect admissions at some of these places that are really sports crazy and make it harder for women to get into certain schools? Like that's a problem.
Yep.
And then the other thing is, what about some of these Big East schools that don't have a football program or a prominent football program? Like Villanova, I know is FCS. Marquette doesn't have a football team, I believe. Georgetown doesn't have a football team. That's going to give them a huge advantage in basketball because they're going to pour so much money in there because they don't have football taking away anything. So that I think there are certain people are going to take big advantage of this, and that's going to be a little bit of an issue, I think.
That's where it gets messy, right? Now, there is, I guess, the other side of the coin. If you don't have a football program, you limit how much revenue you pull in.
But then
But I get, in terms of balancing it out, you could essentially just turn it into like you're going to have your own revenue in general. And then you could turn it into pulling in from your donor base and say, all right, the collectives, they're outdated. It's not going to happen anymore. Or you just bring the collectives in-house. Now you're donating to donating the athletic department. And yes, like you're saying, you don't have to worry about splitting up of like that 12 million in this example to both football and basketball. You just give it to basketball.
Or just put a cap on each sport specifically, make football salary cap a little, a specific number, make basketball's a specific number. I feel like that's the best way to do this. I think if you want to mainstream this and generalize it, I think it's going to be super messy. And obviously with football being the most profitable sport at everybody that has a football program because those TV deals are gigantic.
Yep.
I think you put football and make it the biggest cap. I mean, obviously the NFL salary cap, the NBA salary cap are different numbers for a reason. So I think that would be the best way to make this regulated sport by sport specific.
Well, that's where the Title IX comes in, right? Because if you can ignore Title IX, then you can just say, all right, here's my $22 million. Football brings in 60% of our revenue, so we're going to give them 60%. And like it's very simple in that way. And
it is.
Right, because then what's the salary cap for like field hockey going to be? No offense to field hockey, but like
nothing.
You're not bringing in money, and so then you're making it unfair for those people. So it's hard. Somebody's going to get screwed over, no matter what you do.
Yeah, I mean, to reach the ability to pay out the $22 million, you're going to have to find ways to come up with that $22 million. You haven't, as Josh said today, we don't have $22 million just sitting around that we didn't know what to do with.
Right. That's
like, so these new contracts, like you mentioned, like the Big Ten TV deal that means huge to bring in that additional revenue. And forgive me for not off the top of my head, maybe Jimmy does or Kyle remembers how much per school that was.
I know the new schools are getting like a lot more than, and they're only getting half of the contract for a period of time. And those new schools are getting like way more than they would have gotten in the Pac-12 full.
Right.
Between 80 and 100 million per school.
Man, my goodness.
That's insane.
So it's like, it's hard to say to those guys like, hey, you only get $5 million to work with. Like, sorry.
Right. So the money, I know you're gonna have to, with the expansion, fork out. And I think this is another thing, and we could spend. There are just so many ways to spend this off. Not only for non-revenue generating sports are you now with the expansion going to have to pay increased travel because you're going to go out to the West Coast and you get imagine the how much you will fork over if you're UCLA's softball team to go play at Rutgers or play Maryland or whatnot. So you got that involved, but now you based on the current expectations, like you might have to pay those athletes to be able to then stack up and pay what you want to pay to football and basketball. It's just that part of it doesn't make any sense. So, and again, I'm not trying to rag on those athletes on the other side of it, but I think that's an interesting part of it. With the TV money, that's a big shot in the arm for sure. But I imagine that athletic departments have been anticipating that, and then maybe introducing projects they want to be able to build. That's something that's always in the works in athletic departments, or they're large. There are large pools of employees in athletic departments, a number of different marketing, administration, and then you're giving raises to coaches and those type of things. So there will be cuts. Sports programs in general are going to get cut out of this because you're just going to have to make up some of that money and find ways to get it. And of course, I think donations are going to be really, really important. But kind of the funny thing is, on the note of manipulation, like, admittedly, and this isn't super like savory or whatever, or kosher, however you want to put it, to get around the Title IX rules, if that's what you got to do, I'd be telling my donors, like, don't give the money to us. We got to split it up and do all this different stuff. Give it to Custard Cup. And Custard Cup then can, or not just to promote the good custard that's over there on Kirby Ave, but give it to a business that they can strike an NIL deal with an athlete in the sport that we're wanting to give it to.
I was just about to ask that. Do you think that this will replace NIL or work alongside NIL? And I think that's a great point, because I think for the sake of your football and basketball program, you actually want to increase your NIL output to work around this and be able to funnel more money into those programs.
Yep.
Certainly nobody would do that, right?
No,
I mean, everybody's so
no.
upstanding. I think Bill Self's going to be like, no, we got to put our money to the women's side. We don't have to take all of that.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, and I know we're due for a break. I do want to get you Josh Whitman. There's a large chunk there, but let's make this the last point on this, because there's another layer, and maybe we'll have to spend multiple days talking about this. But Josh has mentioned, as I said on the front end, wanting to present some regulation and a governing body or just a policing body to try to cut out these pay-for-play NIL deals. I think it's super unrealistic. He said it's realistic. I asked him to hear the clip. I said, how realistic is it to be able to successfully do that? He said, I think it's very realistic if we get cohesive as a university-wide, not within Illinois' university, but all the universities out there to be under the same umbrella and to do this. Like, you can't tell an athlete, or you can't tell a corporation or even a small business what somebody's worth in a commercial. If a car dealership that's wealthy or gets funneled money some way wants to pay a basketball player $500,000 to do a commercial, they can do it, because you're worth whatever someone will pay you to do something. That's the business model that's in America. That's the market is. The market is what someone's willing to give to you. You can never curb that and say what's legitimate and what's not. So I think that's super unrealistic until I'm shown a way that it's that you can work around that. And again, if Title IX is going to be a big hurdle that athletic departments are going to have to face, I think that's going to be the way to equalize it, or to really have programs try to gain an advantage. And we're kidding ourselves. And that's where some of this kind of gets interesting. We're kidding ourselves if we're thinking that we're going to level the playing field, that we're all going to operate on the same salary. There's going to be a salary cap. And some programs just aren't going to be able to afford to hit the $22 million threshold. There'll be plenty of those. A lot.
And there'll be some that'll try like hell to go over.
But there will be people that find a way to hit that and then funnel more through NIL. Or don't hit the 22 and just funnel it to where you want on the side through NIL. You guys are in agreement with me. I'm not saying you have to be, but I just don't see any way that you can change NIL, put that back in the bottle and say, we want it to be the Caitlin Clark. We want it to be State Farm and only that.
No,
it's
not going to happen unless, it's impossible.
You can put anything in place that you want to. It's not stopping anybody from doing it. It's been happening forever. I mean,
Yeah,
you can
right.
put in any guidelines or governing body in place. People are going to find a way to work around it. People are going to find loopholes to go through. And like you said, it's hard anyway to govern that, because at the end of the day, you get paid what somebody believes you're worth in an NIL deal, and you can't say, well, no, actually, we're telling you you're not worth $500,000 for this sponsorship.
Yeah.
That's not how the world works. You can't do that.
Absolutely not.
So unless you want to start really punishing teams and like kind of doing what happened with SMU back in the day with the death penalty they got for football, like it's not going to change. I mean, you can threaten that all you want, but they're not going to do it. So as long as the ramifications aren't super serious, it's just going to keep being like this forever.
Well, and how loosely tied just some kind of marketing appearance, you can make it legally very clean.
Oh, yeah, easy.
It can be very clean, like in terms of, like, why can't somebody, based on what's in place, people can have Cameo. If you're not familiar with Cameo, like someone pops on your FaceTime and sings your kid happy birthday. Like, who's to say that Zach Edey, if he was still in college, couldn't set the price tag at $200,000 to sing your kid happy birthday? And if people are paying it, how is that illegal?
It's not. So but before it was. I don't even know how they could legally do that back then.
It wasn't until like NIL that.
Right, because remember destroying, the NCAA told him he had to either quit doing YouTube or quit playing football.
Yeah, right.
So that was a big story back then, and then NIL came a few years later. But
it could just be an easy way, though, for a big booster with a lot of money to say,
I'll support your YouTube channel, yeah.
Sing my kid happy birthday, and I'll give you your $200,000. And that's the simplest, easiest, cleanest way to do it.
And
that will happen.
Do it for 3 more years.
Yeah.
And then after that, your birthday greeting will be not worth $200,000 anymore.
Anyone who thinks that can be stopped is kidding themselves. There's no way. With respect to Josh Whitman, with respect to people out there, and I don't know that if some people are saying it just because it sounds good, it's the right thing to say, type of things. But like Kyle said, and this has been happening forever. There have been different forms of it now in terms of booster money to said player, pay for play. It's legal now. Can't put it back in the box. All right, if you want to win, you can. 217-359-2255 on the Max Twin City Recycling text line. Let's hear from Josh Whitman next. This is The Drive.
Here's another home improvement insight from Kramer Siding and Window. New roofing and siding are a winning combination that can instantly change the look, feel, and function of your home. Our Kramer Siding and Window team takes pride in being an Owens Corning Platinum Preferred contractor, able to offer a best-in-the-business 50-year warranty. Pair it with preservation siding in your favorite style and color, and your home will be a showstopper. Start today and save 10% on roofing and 25% on siding. Call us, click on kramersiding.com, or visit the showroom in Champaign.
Ow! A spring just hit me.
Mom, the couch is broken again.
It's about time we get rid of that clunky couch and look into buying a new one.
What about Two Men in a Junk Truck? Their professional moving team does a great job assisting with downsizing, home renovations, and clearing out old items you need hauled away.
Wow, it sounds like it'll make much more space in this house once the couch is hauled away.
I just pulled it up on my phone. You can schedule an appointment online at twomeninajunktruck.com.
At Carpet Weavers Flooring and Furniture Gallery, we're flooring people with amazing service, great design advice, and unbeatable selection and the best prices in town. It's the perfect time to update your home with waterproof flooring, carpet, hardwood, tile, and more. Then complete your rooms by shopping our incredible selection of furniture and accessories. We also offer great financing options. Carpet Weavers Flooring and Furniture Gallery, we're flooring people.
Illini fans, join us in Memorial Stadium as we honor 100 years of tradition with $100 football season tickets. Don't miss a moment this season and lock in your tickets for Homecoming, Dad's Day, and a special rededication of Memorial Stadium on October 19th against the University of Michigan. Experience more cherished moments at Memorial Stadium this season and get your $100 season tickets at fightingillini.com.
Urbana's Market at the Square has been cultivating a vibrant scene in CU since 1979. Get to know your farmers, bringing locally harvested honey, crafts, jewelry, art, fresh cut flowers, plus produce including fresh leafy greens and root vegetables, fresh baked treats, and a wide selection of proteins. Going on now, every Saturday, 7 a.m. till noon, rain or shine at Illinois and Vine, it's Urbana Market at the Square. Find Urbana Market on Facebook or urbanamarket.org.
Tolono Fun Days is coming the last full weekend in June.
I'm Diane Ducey. We're happy to get Martin Equipment in Tolono to sponsor the Kitty Tractor Pull after the 11 a.m. parade. Plus, coroner candidate Lori Brower from Tolono and Arbor Rose are sponsoring the cakewalk. And bingo is back before 90's daughter takes the stage in the beer tent at 9:20 on June 29th. Support the festival funds as you buy a pork sandwich meal deal, raffle tickets, and don't forget the $10 Cow Drop Square.
Tolono Fun Days are Friday, June 28th and Saturday, June 29th, as we salute the original Monocle's Pizza that dates back to 1959. Bushel Transport is sponsoring the Friday Golf Cart Parade at 8. Music from Bad Medicine starts at the Pavilion at 7. Check out the 25-8 Extreme Zipline Rock Climbing Wall at Extreme Air at Westside Park from 5 to 9. As you get your wristband for a package deal on this new attraction. Prairie State Bank presents the movie in Eastside Park, where camping will happen overnight. Visit TolonoFundays.org for details on this last full weekend in June.
Here's your OSF Healthcare Medical Minute.
Hi, this is Awad Al-Yami. I'm a pediatrician with OSF Healthcare. I think the most important thing about summertime is two things, is injury prevention. So make sure when you're around water, take care of water safety. And also when you're playing with bicycles and scooters, make sure your kids are wearing helmets. And the other thing is sunscreen and hydration. We do vaccines along with school physical visits and well child checks. School physical is actually a requirement from the state. Typically it's needed for pre-K every 2 years, kindergarten, 6th grade and 9th grade, okay? But also your child needs their well child check or annual visit for health supervision every year. You have all sorts of options to get scheduled. You can call over the phone, you can do it over online. If you have My Chart, you can do that as well. Or you can just walk into the office and we will help you out.
For more information, visit osfhealthcare.org.
Can you just start kind of the news of the day on Terrence? You had a Zoom call with him last night and what the decision was there.
Talked to Terrence last night, had a great conversation, informed him that we'd made the decision to move his jersey up into the rafters in State Farm Center. Felt like, obviously, given the season that he had, one of the great seasons in the history of our program, it was clear to, I think, anybody who follows college basketball that he was one of the top 10 players in the country, probably one of the top 2 or 3 players in the country, and only for the situation that he had to go through that he didn't get the votes to be the consensus All-American that our policy requires. And so we were excited to grant an exception there and look forward to celebrating him once he has a sense of where he's going to be and what his schedule looks like, and letting our fans thank him for all that he's done in helping advance this program.
Josh, when did you come to that decision? Was there any conversations with Brad? You made it sound like it was a pretty easy one to make, but just what was that process for you?
To me, it was pretty straightforward. I recognize again the season that it was and the circumstances and just the unique nature of the entire situation, and so didn't require a lot of deliberation on my part.
You mentioned the one constant lately has been change, but there's more change to come, and you just have to embrace it in college sports.
Change has been the constant here in college athletics for the last number of years. I don't anticipate that's going to slow down anytime soon. We've treated change as a net beneficiary for the University of Illinois. We've seen NIL, the transfer portal, some of these other important changes that have come through the system have, I think, been important for us as we've continued to move forward and advance this program. As we prepare for this next round of change stemming largely from the lawsuit settlement that we're anticipating, we expect that we'll continue to adopt a similar strategy and hopefully with comparable results.
How are you handling the student misconduct policy? What things are you looking forward to changing or implementing this fall, Josh?
We are taking a look at our policy. We're working with different groups on campus council, trying to determine what changes, if any, would be appropriate to the policy. We'll have that policy updated prior to the start of the year. no comments really on what the substance of that might look like. Again, lots of different considerations there, but certainly it's something that we need to take some time and study, and we'll have a slightly modified approach most likely as we head into the new year.
Why is now appropriate to stop the wrestling facility construction, and what factors led to that, Josh?
Just the uncertainty of the environment we're in right now. There are really two considerations. One is financial, although we had received about $10 million in support of that project. The total price tag of that was in excess of $15 million, and so there's a delta there that we were prepared to fund as an athletic program as we start to contemplate some of these new expenses and these new opportunities for us to invest in our student athletes. Needed to determine whether that $5 or $6 million still was the right place to spend it with the facility, and then just the uncertainty of the entire paradigm around college athletics. You've seen other programs across the country make similar decisions, not necessarily about a wrestling facility, but about various facilities projects. And just until we have some clarity around what this is going to look like, how we're going to pay for it, it felt like the prudent move to just hit pause on that for the time being.
You mentioned in college football going to a 12-team playoff opens the door for a lot of programs, including Illinois.
I think it does. I think it creates tremendous interest in the regular season and allows more programs to have relevancy as we turn the calendar into November. I think even though it's a 12-team playoff, you're going to have probably 30 schools across the country that are in that last month with a realistic chance to try and get their ticket punched into that tournament. And I think it creates tremendous interest. I think it's great for the sport of football, and certainly for us here at Illinois, it gives us an opportunity to continue to try and build towards that opportunity. We expect to get our program to a place where we're competing to get into that 12-team field. And once you're into that kind of a tournament, just like with the basketball tournament, you never know what can happen once the ball gets kicked off. And so excited about the expansion and look forward to seeing the benefits of that for college football.
With this season being the 100th anniversary of Memorial Stadium being dedicated, what are some things that fans can expect that are kind of in motion in order to make sure that the fan experience is exciting throughout the course of the season in order to commemorate the occasion?
We continue to make upgrades to Memorial Stadium. We've got a lot of work that's happening over there now. We've got some scaffolding up. We're doing some brickwork. We've been doing a lot of painting in the east side. We'll have redone the south horseshoe amenities, including the bathrooms and concession stands. We've invested almost $10 million in the stadium over the last 3 years. A lot of it has been out of the public eye and things that maybe are seen but not always fully appreciated. And then we're going to continue to look at ways to really celebrate that building as we head into the 100th anniversary. We'll have a rededication around, of course, that Michigan game, which is 100 years in a day after the original game when Red had the tremendous performance against Michigan. It's special for us that game will be against the Wolverines again at our request several years ago. We'll have a lot of different things that we're doing to celebrate the stadium. We've announced the Era helmet project that we'll be doing, where we'll wear a variety of helmets over the course of the season, each celebrating a different era of Illinois football. We do expect to have throwback uniforms for the Michigan game itself. We're excited to introduce those to the public at the right time. We'll be doing some other things over the course of the season as well to, again, just honor the building and celebrate the great tradition of Illinois football.
What are the biggest ways you see the House settlement impacting you, both short-term and long-term, along with the rest of the settlements, Josh, that are out there?
The settlement is really transformative for college athletics, and we're continuing to work through what that could mean for us here at the University of Illinois. There's a lot of different questions that we have to answer. It's important that we look at the roster sizes, the scholarship allocation, which sports continue to make sense for us to sponsor, and how we can support our student athletes in a very meaningful way to make sure that they have the kind of experience that they expect when they come to a place like the University of Illinois. They want a chance to compete against the best in the world. They raise their hand and have identified as amongst being in the best in the world, and we want to continue to support that. At the same time, we want them to have a chance to compete at the highest level. And so there's a lot packed into that, a lot of decisions yet to come, but we know that we've got coaches out there who need some clarity from us, and we're working as quickly as we can to try and provide that.
how big of a challenge is this with the $22 million, with NIL, with everything that's going on budget-wise for you guys in the future, and the unknown of all of that, Josh?
It is a big challenge. It's a multi-dimensional puzzle for us. There's a lot of different angles to it, and there's certainly considerations around the finances. There are considerations around opportunity, excellence. We want the chance again for our student athletes to have this life-changing experience that is in part supported by the opportunity to compete at the highest level. And so trying to figure out how to put all that together in a way that is supported and in line with our university's values, with the opportunity that we have here in the program is ongoing, and is something that we're really committed to putting a lot of time into here over the course of the summer.
How does Icon fit into that in the future as you see it? And collectives, I thought it was interesting you said you're unsure of what that might look like.
As I said, Icon is the most important partner we have heading into this new year. We have a really important year in front of us, and we're going to continue to push all of our donors and various fans to support Icon. It's absolutely critical to the year in front of us. As we turn the page from that year into the year that follows, there's a lot of decisions that are going to need to be made around how to handle NIL opportunities for our student athletes. And I think we'll get some clarity on that at probably the national level in the months to come.
Certainly every year is important for football, but as Brett enters year 4, you said you wanted sustained success. How does that factor into the long-term plan for him and his success, knowing that year 4 seems pretty large in that sense, Josh?
Every year is a big year for Illinois football, and certainly we have just scratched the surface here over the last 3 years, I think, of what's possible. And Coach Bielema's tenure, that second year, was really special, and just one win away probably from appearing in the Big Ten championship game, maybe going to the Rose Bowl. And so we're knocking on the door of the things that we want to do. We understand the margins between victory and defeat can sometimes be very, very small, and we're working actively to try and make sure that we're doing everything we can to identify those opportunities for us to change those losses to wins, and we know what a difference that can make for the trajectory of the program. Really excited about Brett's continued leadership, the staff that he's been able to put together, the student athletes who are in the Smith Center working every day, and I think our fans have responded. Our ticket sales are higher today than they were all of last year. And we've got a great schedule in front of us for the 24 season. So there's a lot to look forward to, and we're excited about the upcoming year.
For fans who say they dislike the roster churning and the changing of rosters every year, that's just here to stay too?
I think that remains to be seen, and I think there's the possibility that this new environment, this new model that we're going to develop will create opportunities for some greater stability in our rosters. Don't know yet exactly how that might manifest itself. But I think the other part of that is we have had great success with student athletes who have come here now and maybe haven't been here for the traditional 4-year experience. And I think our fans have felt really connected to those young men. You think about a Marcus Damask, you think about a Tommy DeVito. And those are student athletes who were here for just a single year. But through the work that you all do, through the work that our social media staff does, our video crew, we're able to introduce student athletes to our fans in a way that we've never been able to historically. And I think our fans are able to get to know them in a way, in sort of a condensed time frame that still allows them to celebrate them and cheer them. And so it's certainly a different environment than what we grew up with. But we adapt as we go, and I think we've seen even here in recent years the opportunity that can still exist for those folks who aren't here on our campus for as long to still have great impact and leave with a really meaningful legacy.
Josh, you talked about the hope, which I think is shared by many, the guardrails around NIL in the future. How realistic do you think that is to make it not be inflated and essentially pseudo pay for play?
I hope very realistic, and again, time will tell. I think there's a need for us to develop a new, more progressive, more active enforcement mechanism, if that ultimately is something that the membership chooses at once. But with a new enforcement mechanism, I think this is very doable. But ultimately, we have to make a collective decision. Do we want to be governed? Do we want rules in place? Do we want to try and create a level playing field. I think that we want to move away, or at least I want to move away from an environment where it's who can spend the most to who can spend the best. And that should be the criteria that we're trying to evaluate. And I'm hopeful that through this next round of changes, we're able to build that model.
Are you close to maybe having to make cuts for sports decisions in terms of long-term futures of some of your programs? And then I understand that you want all sports, but the presence of men's basketball and football seems to be at a higher level than ever. Is that accurate in your mind?
Football and men's basketball has always, of course, been incredibly important to the overall viability of the athletic department. I think that importance has been magnified in the current environment. I think there are risks or downsides to our inability to get those programs going that haven't existed in the past. If there were to be another contraction in college athletics, we want to make sure that Illinois athletics continues to have a seat at the biggest, most prominent table. And I don't think we can just assume that because we're a member of the Big Ten, that will always be the case. And so we need to make sure that we're moving aggressively to put those two programs in a position to be as successful as possible. Relative to the sports sponsorship, I think we are at a point where we have to try and remain competitive in a number of different ways. We know that we have an opportunity now to spend $22 million with our student athletes. It puts us in a position where we're evaluating every line item in our budget, trying to find those dollars so that we can make that strategic investment. And at this moment, kind of like when we were in COVID, we're not foreclosing any options. And so if there's a lot of different levers that we have at our disposal, one of them is which sports are we sponsoring? And obviously that's a last resort for anybody in my situation. We want to make sure that we have exhausted other possibilities before we would pull on that lever. But it is something that I wouldn't be doing my job if we didn't at least consider and evaluate.
You have a big voice here, but how big of a voice do you feel like you have nationally in the Big Ten? And how comfortable are you in that shaping the future of the Big Ten and NCAA draft?
It's not about, I think, my voice. I'm fortunate to be associated with a great university. I'm fortunate to represent a dynamic conference. And so I just want to make sure that I'm being a good steward of those responsibilities, that I can be a good representative of the University of Illinois and of the Big Ten. I've been fortunate here recently to gain access to some different groups and be in a position now to share some of that voice on behalf of the people I represent. And I think that's, I'm honored to do that. And you know, certainly it comes at a moment when I feel like that voice can matter. We're at a really critical moment in college athletics, and to be involved in some of the different conversations that I am now is a tremendous responsibility and one that I take really seriously.
Obviously, one of the themes today has been about change, and you emphasize the goal and the success you want to see the Illini have in the future. What kind of opportunity would you say is in front of you guys, and how are you guys going to attack that opportunity?
I think it's an opportunity that's unlike any in our history. There never has been such profound change in college athletics, and if we can deploy effective strategy in the face of this change, then it's going to put our program in a stronger position than many of our competitors. And so that is central to the strategy that we're trying to develop now. And I think we've shown over the last few years that we're not going to be resistant to change. We're going to lean into that. We're going to see it again as opportunity. And so it's a central part of our strategy, is trying to take advantage of a disrupted industry and put our program in a more competitive position than we were previously.
Josh, this may be a dumb question, but you mentioned the expectation that Title IX would apply to the revenue sharing. Is that to say that you'd have to spend the same number across women's athletics as you would on, you mentioned men's basketball and football being the primary drivers on the men's side?
I don't want to go too far down the sort of the rabbit hole of, I could do an hour just on Title IX, but I think generally speaking, there will be 3 buckets of financial benefits that will be available to student athletes. There will be scholarships. There will be the Alston Awards that many of us started to award after the Alston decision a few years ago. And then there will be the revenue sharing dollars. Our expectation is that those revenues within each of those buckets will need to be compliant with Title IX, and that they will need, in Title IX, as it has been explained to us, would require that those dollars be distributed proportionately to the men's and women's participation in our program. And so it's not necessarily 50-50. It's based on the men's and women's participation rates in Illinois athletics. And so that's again, as I say, we're preparing for these allocations to be compliant with Title IX. That's our expectation. If we learn differently, then we'll be prepared to pivot.
Did you ever, you talked about all the change over the past 5 years. You probably didn't expect this to happen. What do you see 5 years down the road? What's this going to look like?
I think it'll look largely like what it looks like starting in 25. I think there could be, as I mentioned, another evolution, probably involving employment. I don't know how quickly that would happen. This is now happening quickly. And so, you expect these things, you anticipate them, you don't know exactly what the runway will look like to get there once it becomes evident that that's where you're going to go. So, I expect that that in 5 years' time we'll have something that involves this revenue share and additional student athlete benefits. I think it's possible, although I just don't know yet whether that will also involve characterizing them as employees and what some of the ancillary pieces could be that would come with that.
How have you found your responsibilities as the D1 chairman, council chairman, kind of impact your ability to be the athletic director at Illinois? Because it would seem to me like some of those things conflict, where the objectives of an Eastern Illinois who is in the Division I is not going to be the same as University of Illinois.
Yeah, I think primarily the conflicts exist mostly just for my time, and so, I think as the council chair, I don't want to overstate, the influence that I have. I don't have the ability to make policy. I don't have the ability to, and so I try and facilitate healthy conversation, dialogue, try and lead us to efficient outcomes. But at the end of the day, in that role, even as the chair, I'm still just the Big Ten representative. I still just have the same vote that the Big Ten has always had, and so I'm not in a position to provide direct influence over what some of these outcomes might be. And I think we recognize again that every institution is going to have different interests in how some of these decisions are ultimately made and where they lead us. But that's sort of the point of the council, is to facilitate those conversations, to share different opinions and viewpoints, and then ultimately to reach some resolution that is the will of the group at the end of the day.
Josh, with these last few years, kind of as the runway for NIL's presence in college athletics, what have you noticed about just how athletes have been able to handle some with substantial money, some with obviously maybe less than that, but just as you push forward in the future, what the ability for athletes to have that on their plate and what that looks like for you guys?
I've been impressed with our athletes. I'm always impressed with our athletes, and certainly this is a great real-life learning opportunity for them that didn't exist 5 years ago. The chance to learn how to manage resources, to have some money in the bank, how to have a bank account, how to balance a checkbook. These are things that are evolving as they have additional resources at their disposal. And so I'm impressed with who they are. I think this allows them to gain a level of sophistication in terms of their business acumen and their real life experience that is really fortunate and will ultimately pay dividends for them down the road. And so in that sense, I think it's been a really productive experience. I think that there have been a lot of benefits to this NIL environment, and not the least of which is I think you're also seeing both here on our campus and across the country, more and more student athletes are staying in school and extending their education, in some cases earning degrees. Of course, we've been doing some great work in the communities as well, and spending time with primarily youth in the local area. And so there's been a lot of wins through this